Yes. So I am so happy to introduce Dr. Prashant R. Nair sir to you all the participants now. So Dr. Prashant R. Nair, Vice Chairman, IQAC, as well as Associate Professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Amartha Viswa Vidyapeetham, Coimbatore. So he is working as Associate Professor of Computer Science Engineering there. So he has over 20 years of teaching, research, mentoring, training, consultancy, and academic administration experience. He has taught in academic programs in USA and Europe at University of California, San Diego, and Sophia University. So he has written 6 books, edited 2 books and 1 book chapters, and over 50 publications in reputed journals, books, and conferences. He has mentored student teams, which has won premier international and national competitions like Smart India Hackathon, Rajasthan Hackathon, TCS Digital Twins Challenge, and represented India as a part of the national hackathon team for Singapore India Hackathon, and facilitated by Honorable Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi. So he has also been ranked as top innovator, that is innovation mentor in India by Atal Innovation Mission, and coordinates AIM activities at Tamil Nadu as regional mentors of change. He has been serving as chairman, vice chairman, coordinator of Ahmedabad Deemed University IQAC cell since 2009. So we are happy to have you for this wonderful session, sir. Welcome to NAIR Group of Institution.
Yeah, thank you. So do I start directly?
Please, sir. Please, sir. Please.
Yeah. Okay. Very good afternoon to all the participants of this excellent faculty development program with so many participants organized by Nehru Group of Institutions. Dr. Shaktivel sir, Dr. Subhashri ma'am, other faculty colleagues, many of them I know so well from Nehru as our neighbor institution, and a lot of friends I have in Nehru. Dear participants of this faculty development program and workshop. So I will talk to you about outcome-based education, curricular mapping, and if also show you some sheets that can be used for this calculations and so on. That will be the second part. So I understand that already some of the speakers have spoken about outcome-based education. So there will be a bit of repetition. I'm sorry, but that's how the presentation is structured. So that at the risk of a bit of repetition, I will share my slides. Just hold on. Is my slide visible?
Sir, visible, sir. Visible, sir.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so I'll start I'll give you some idea about how you are doing the curriculum mapping and what is the logic behind the process of attainment of various kinds of the CO, PO, and PSO. I understand you've got some idea about all this, but I have to give a small but crisp explanation on why OBE is important. Yeah. So my experience has been in outcome-based education. In my capacity for the last 12 years, I have been functioning as either the chair or the vice chair of the internal quality assurance cell of the university. In fact, for all this period, it was not only for our campus in Coimbatore, that is where I am stationed. You see a picture of the Coimbatore campus, the left side. But the IQAC vice chair and chair role was for almost 12 years for all the campuses of the university. So presently, Amrita Vishnu Vidyapeetham is ranked 4th in the country in the NIRF, Government of India's university rankings. We are the top private university in India. We have completed 2 cycles of NAAC accreditation. At that point of time, A was the highest grade. Now, of course, the grading has changed, but we are expecting the 3rd cycle any day, so as to speak. And we have got some international rankings also. We have been very successful because the IQAC, or the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, has been the nodal agency for coordinating all the ranking, accreditation activities of the university, so as to speak. So during this 12 years, for a brief period of a couple of years, I even was chairing the university's IQAC. But as per the NAC guideline, the vice chancellor has to chair. So we have stepped aside because the rules have to be followed. But for a long period, one of us was chairing the IQAC. And last 4-5 years, we have been focusing a lot on outcome-based education. And it was been, to be very honest with you all, it has been a trial and error method. We have tried our best. We have tweaked it many times. We have understood the system over a period of ups and downs, which goes to everybody who goes through this OBE process will find that experience of trial and error. You'll try up certain things. It may work, it may not work. Then you will slightly modify it, you tweak it, and so on. So now I'm happy to even report that in terms of the IQAC activity, hopefully by the next couple of weeks, all our undergraduate UG programs will be accredited by NBA. We have completed the NBA for 4 of them. 3 of them we are expecting a positive result in a week or 2. I was told a couple of days back. So we hope that ours will be an institution. I'm talking only of the School of Engineering in Coimbatore campus, not the university wide. We hope that all our undergraduate programs will be accredited by NBA. So today I'll talk to you a bit about the OBE curricular process and so on. Before I want to talk to you about this, I want to stress upon one aspect. So this is a slide that I use for all my consulting or all my lectures. So almost 20 institutions I'm helping as an IQAC expert member, external member, or an academic expert, or a DAC expert, a department academic committee expert. But I give this in all my presentations to stress upon the importance of documentation. See, for any process, academic process, accreditation process, administrative process, extension process, student activities, documentation is the very bedrock. The foundation of it lies in having proper documentation. And that is why I have actually put this quotation, which comes from statistics. There may be some mathematics faculty here. They will understand the first part comes from statistics, that in God we trust, but for everything else we need data. So that part is from statistics. Right? It's not my copyrighted thing. In God we trust, but for everything else we need data. But that data needs to be supported by evidence. That is my contribution or my take on this very common famous quote. So in God we trust, but for everything else we need data, and every single data that you have has to be supported with the proper proof, with the proper evidences, with the proper validation. Now, that is the bedrock for any academic institution. If you ask me, the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of a college, which is the nodal agency for accreditation ranking, has to, the bedrock of that IQAC, the success of that IQAC depends upon documentation. Outcome-based education, which is a highly effective academic process. Again, the bedrock lies in having proper documentation. As a teacher, what about your course file? As a student, what about the answer script? What is it? And this documentation encompasses an end-to-end life cycle. It is not only your teaching materials, your teaching resources, the instructor resources. It is the kind of evaluations that you are doing, the quizzes that you are conducting, the periodical tests that you are doing, the projects that you are guiding or mentoring. It is the evaluation instruments, the feedback, every single thing. And let me tell you, the bedrock OBE can only succeed. You can have so many philosophies, you can talk about Bloom's taxonomy, you can talk about anything and everything, but it will only succeed if you have a proper system of documentation. And that proper system of documentation encompasses everything. Teaching learning process, all the academic documentation, whether it is a course plan, a lesson plan, a session plan, in evaluation methodology, a student list, a student result, sample answers sheets, course committee meeting minutes, class committee meeting minutes, feedback of the teaching learning process, feedback of the attainment of the outcomes, alumni survey, course exit survey. So see the amount of the wide variety of documentation that is needed. So I want to stress upon this before I actually start the presentation. I want to stress on the role of documentation, which is cardinal, which is absolutely needed for the success of all efforts in outcome-based education. This is what I wanted to stress upon. Now, I'm sure you know about what OBE is. I'm sure the speakers before me have spoken about outcome-based education. As all of you know, as a recap, outcome-based education ensures that your students have got higher order capabilities and higher order competencies. You are building higher order capabilities, higher order competencies amongst your students, and you are having the outcomes which are measurable. Now, when a college is going for AICTE approval, what does AICTE ask? How many teachers do you have? How many PhDs do you have? How many classrooms do you have? How many laboratories that you have? How much of software licenses you have? How many books in the library? But please understand, all of these are focused on only inputs. Library book is an input, software is an input, faculty is an input, curriculum is an input, classroom is an input, computer is an input. We are not measuring the outcomes. So the process of accreditation, process of outcome-based education, which is the bedrock of NBA accreditation, focuses on how you measure the outcomes of the student. What have they achieved in terms of intellectual property, in terms of their result, in terms of their examination results, in terms of other outcomes, creation of intellectual property. You are measuring that output. So this is very, very important, because the approval process of AICTE only focuses on the input. Now you have a process, outcome-based education, which is looking at the output as a whole. Now, let me also tell you, it is not that outcome-based education is not only needed for engineering colleges and who have to mandatorily go for NBA accreditation. Please note that even UGC and NAAC are alluding to the importance of outcome-based education. Only thing, they call it by a different name. If you see the UGC terminology, maybe every university vice chancellor would have got a letter 6 or 7 years back talking about LOCF. LOCF is Learning Outcomes Curriculum Framework. Same thing. Even though when you are going for a NAAC accreditation also, there is a significant amount of questions that are based on how you are having course outcomes, program outcomes, program specific outcomes. It may not be very large, so as to speak, maybe 30, 40, 50 points, but please understand, 50 points out of 1000 is very significant. 5% rate is very significant. That could be the difference between A++ and A+, or A and whatever, A and A+. So it is very important, and at least on this count, Both UGC and ACT and NAC and NBA seem to agree that this is needed. And what is happening in outcome-based education? You are actually measuring the outcomes. How you are measuring the outcomes? You are doing analytics. You are focusing on the curriculum. You are having feedback processes for the curriculum. And who is giving this feedback? The stakeholders. It could be experts, it could be professional bodies, it could be your alumni, it could be your students, it could be your experts within your own college or university. This is the first part. There is a feedback mechanism for the curriculum. There is a feedback mechanism for the teaching learning process. What are the tools that you are using for teaching? What are the pedagogical initiatives that you are using for teaching a learning process? Are you using innovative tools? What kind of innovative tools are you using? What is the feedback that you got on those tools, that pedagogical interventions? And how are the students accepting those pedagogical interventions? Is that going on fast? Better. And finally, on the evaluation, the examination. Every instrument of evaluation could be an end semester exam, could be an internal test, could be a cycle test, could be an assignment, could be a quiz, could be a viva, could be a mini project, could be a full-fledged project. All of these, you are breaking it down into outcomes, course outcomes, and measuring where you stand. Have you attained this outcome? So outcome-based education is a very good process in the sense that there is a feedback loop throughout the life cycle of OBE. The first feedback cycle is with respect to the curriculum. Second feedback cycle is based on the teaching learning process and the learning. And the last is based on the examination or the evaluation. So all these are being, there is a feedback system. And that is why this process is highly effective, at least in terms of how you can see how effective this process is. Outcome-based education puts you on the path of continuous quality improvement. You are on a trajectory, you are on a path towards continuous process improvement. You are always trying to improve. And the simply this cycle puts you, I don't know if any of the speakers before me showed this slide, but outcome-based education puts you on the trajectory towards continuous quality improvement, where you say what you want, do what you say, prove what you do, and improve what you do. So this cycle, you get into this cycle of continuous improvement when you implement OBE. So to give you a quick summary, OBE is giving higher order capabilities to your students. Higher order competencies, capabilities are inbuilt into your students when you go for outcome-based education. Outcome-based education puts you into a continuous process improvement cycle, continuous quality improvement cycle. Number two, outcome-based education also is very effective because there are feedback mechanisms, and that feedback mechanisms focus on three buckets. First bucket is the academic side, the curriculum. Second bucket is the teaching learning process, the pedagogy and the methodology of teaching, the tools that you are using for teaching. And the third bucket is the examination and the evaluation instruments. So there is a three bucket or three pronged feedback mechanism, and that is why OBE becomes highly effective. So this and of course The first point, or rather the most important point I told you, the bedrock lies on having proper documentation. Having proper documentation is key for the success of OBE. So now I will get into the actual topic of today, that is the curricular mapping. I'm sure you heard about from the earlier speakers of the need for a department to have a vision and a mission. The department, the department has to have a vision and a mission. I'm not going to spend, I understand this has been already covered, but every department has to have a vision and mission. That vision and mission of the department has to be aligned to the college vision and mission. If your college is a constituent college of a university, then your college vision and mission should be aligned to the university vision and mission. First part. I'm not spending time on this, but only one catch is that department vision and mission should be aligned to college vision and mission. College vision and mission should be aligned to university vision and mission, if there is a university above that. Second thing I want to stress upon vision, both vision and mission are not a holy cow. Vision and mission has to change on and off. It doesn't need to change every day. But a mission can change once in 3 or 4 years. A vision can also probably change. Maybe a mission can change once in 2 or 3 years, depending upon the changing global, national, and industry needs. Maybe a vision may not change so much. Maybe once in 3 or 4 years, you must definitely look at how your vision and mission are. Now coming to the PEO, I'm sure this has also been covered, but to talk to you quickly about the PEO. The PEO, or the program educational objectives, some of them use it as program educational outcomes. More or less they are the same. They are the attributes that a student should have after they graduate and the first few years of graduation. PEO. So PEO is what are the competencies, what are the attributes of and achievements of your graduates, what they can do immediately after graduation and the first 4 or 5 years after graduation. Again, there is a feedback mechanism. Now coming to today, the topic of attainment and the curricular mapping. Essentially, we are mapping the CEOs to POs and PSOs. What is a program outcome? A PO. A PO refers to the knowledge, skills, and attributes that an engineer or a professional needs to have. Now, these are the attributes, in the sense, these are the attributes, the skills, and the knowledge that every engineer needs to have. So, we are following in India what NBA has given, the 12 graduate attributes. I also wanted to tell you that these are pretty universal. Even an arts and science college can use 12 of these, or may take I don't know if there are some participants from arts and science colleges or MBA colleges. Actually speaking, these graduate attributes, even though they have been defined by NBA, have been adopted from the Washington Accord and Abbott methodologies. They have taken the Abbott graduate attributes and slightly tweaked it to suit the Indian system. So, having said that, if you are an arts college running an arts and science program, if you are an engineering college, you can follow all 12. If you are an MCA, you can follow 12. If you are an arts and science college, you can maybe adopt 7 or 8 out of them. If you are an MBA college also, you can adopt 6 or 7 or 8 of them. They are pretty universal and they are actually adopted from Abbott. Slightly the NBA has modified. So in that respect, this is highly universally accepted and everywhere. Now, what are the 12 POs? Quickly, I will talk to you. First is knowledge. Here it is mentioned as engineering knowledge. It can be commerce knowledge. It can be business management knowledge. It doesn't matter. First is knowledge. You have knowledge. First one, PO1 is applying the knowledge. PO2 is analyzing problems. PO3 is designing development of solutions to address these problems. And finally, fourth PO is conducting investigations of complex problem. Now, all of these four can be put in one bucket. They are interlinked to each other. And there is interdependency also. Mostly, if you have a course that is mapping to PO1, it is quite likely that it will map to PO2, 3, and 4. It's quite likely that, because they are one bucket. You have knowledge, you are analyzing problems, you are developing solutions for these problems, and how do you do it? You conduct investigations of these problems. So these four come as one bucket. And most of the courses, if they map to PO1, they're likely to map to PO2, 3, and 4. And that also depends upon your evaluation instruments. Now coming to other POs. Are you using tools? If you are doing a computer architecture course, are you using Verilog? That is a tool. If you are teaching programming, you may be using Python. That is a tool. If you are teaching networking, you are using NS2 simulator. That is a tool. If you are teaching, say, welding, you may be using TIG welding. That is a tool. So, usage of tools. Now, first four are, knowledge, analyzing the problem, designing solutions for the problem, investigating the problem, using tools to address these problems. Now you look at a macro perspective. Now we are talking from individual, you look at a macro perspective. Are you influencing the society? What is the impact of you on the society? Now this can also be, if it is an MBA course, instead of engineer and society, you can call it manager and society. How is it impacting society? How is it impacting the environment and sustainability? How is it impacting the ethical dimension? Are you having something in your course that have testing the ethical dimension? Are you having something in your courses that are looking at environmental issues, sustainability issues, ethical issues, societal issues, and so on? So now from individual, we have gone into the macro, the society, the environment, the sustainability, the ethics. How do you do it? You need to do it in teams. There are certain courses where things are highly individualistic. There are certain courses where things are highly teamwork oriented. For almost every course, there is a component where there is communication. You need to communicate, you need to submit reports, mini projects, designs, and so on. And finally, project management and finance, where there is a managerial perspective and lifelong learning. So actually speaking, these 12 POs are fairly universal in nature. Fairly. Can be adopted by any program. Maybe certain things you may minus here and there, because they move from the individual knowledge, analyzing a problem, developing a solution, investigating the problem, using tools for the problem, and then once you solve the problem, how is that solution affecting the society? How is it affecting the environment? How is it affecting the sustainability? How is it ethical in dimension? Whether you are working in teams, whether you are having individual approach or a team approach, whether you are communicating effectively, whether the thing requires a kind of a managerial perspective to solve it, and whether you are engaged in lifelong learning. So these are fairly universal. It can be used for all programs. If you ask me, you can decide. Maybe if you are running a physics program, you may not need 11. You may not need 10. You never know. It depends. Now coming to the program criteria. Every program is unique. Now this is to do with the curricular mapping. Before I'm going taking the PO and CO into the curriculum, I have to spend some time on the criteria for the program. You may be running a BCom program. You may be running a BTech computer science program. You may be running a mechanical program. You may be running a BSc physics program. There are some program specific attributes. Now, every program will be having some component of sciences needed. Let us take an engineering program. Let us take a electronics and communication engineering program. Electronics and communication engineering. There will be some element of sciences involved, some element of mathematics involved. So there should be clear knowledge segments for the program. One knowledge segment will be basic electronics and communication. It could include microwave technology, microprocessor, all those things will be there in that. That is the core component of the electronics and communication, the subject specific. There would be a knowledge segment with respect to some sciences also. You know, for electronics, you need physics. For electronics, you need mathematics, maybe partial differential equations, probability theory and random process. So before you start the mapping of your program should be well balanced. When I say it is balanced, the program should have adequate knowledge segments. The knowledge segments will include some sciences courses, some mathematics courses, some core engineering courses related to the discipline, and some basic engineering courses. I'm sure, you know, many of us argue, oh, why should we teach engineering drawing to computer science engineers? It's a $1 million question. There are, I don't know how many people, 84 people in this seminar. 40 of them will say yes, 40 of them will say no. I don't want to get into that argument. But what I'm trying to say is that we have to understand that specific knowledge segments are needed for the criteria, every program. If you are having a computer science and engineering program, how can you not have a mathematics without discrete mathematics, graph theory, automata theory? Without that, there is no computer science. You may argue, oh, I am not going to go into that job. I'm going to go only for programming and development. But as a computer science engineer, you need to have this knowledge about the discrete mathematics. For an electrical engineer or an electronics engineer, linear algebra, very important. Probability theory may be needed. So before we do the mapping itself, we have to understand the knowledge segments. And nowadays, people are adding the life skills also. Communication, very important. Engineers need to communicate. You need to have some courses that improve their communication skills. They need to talk in English. They need to be available to do projects and communicate in a global village, in a global situation. They need to have good communication and presentation skills. So there are courses in humanities for that. So an engineering program to be well balanced, the criteria, program criteria means that the curriculum has to be well balanced. Knowledge segments needed will not only be including the branch of engineering, if it is a computer science engineering, the computer science subjects, but there should be some basic engineering subjects, core engineering subjects. There should be some humanities subjects, maybe focusing on language and communication and presentation. There should be some mathematics subjects focusing on the prerequisites for computer science. There should be some science subjects that are focusing on that. Now, there is actually an argument whether, you know, this argument has been played in all private universities, all autonomous institutions for the last 10 years. Many people say, oh, BTech first year should be common. Well, it's an argument. I don't want to take sides, but definitely by and large it can be common, but our approach in our university has been that we can have 60 to 70% common first year subjects, but the remaining 20-30% is highly customized. The mathematics that is needed for computer science you give in the first semester or second semester. Mathematics, so you can have different flavors of the mathematics. The mathematics that is going to be highly applied for the computer science engineers, for the mechanical engineer, you can decide at your level. So before we do the mapping, this is very important. Your curriculum has to be balanced. So I told you about PO. Now I'm coming to the PSO, specific outcomes. For every program, you need to have specific outcomes. Ideally, it should not be more than 2 or 3. And here I have a very strong feeling that the thrust areas of your department should be subtly or physically, not subtly, very clearly mentioned in the PSOs. Now, I'm from a computer science background, so I'm sorry, I'm using an example of computer science and engineering. Pardon me that way, but if I am a computer science department, what are my department's thrust areas? There is a very strong group in artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science. All that is one bucket, one thrust area. There is another group that is working on networking applications, wireless, mobile, wireless applications, and even going into the into the Internet of Things, and that all those kind of things, right? And there is another small group perhaps that is working on image processing, computer vision, computer vision, image processing, video processing, and so on. So and all of them, all the faculty will be in one of these 3 buckets. I'm sure in every department you should have that thrust area. 3 buckets or 3, or it depends. In some cases there may be 4 or 5 buckets. That's okay. But what I'm saying is, simplistically speaking, the PSO should also focus on the thrust areas of the department. That's very important. So if I am having a computer science department with these 3 thrust areas, that should be reflected in my PSOs. PSO 1, PSO 2, PSO 3. First PSO should somehow be aligned to the artificial intelligence, data science, machine learning, deep learning, all that will come there. Second PSO should be aligned to the networking, the mobile, wireless, networking, IoT, communication systems, and so on. Third PSO should be aligned to the image processing, to the computer vision. And why this is needed, I'm not saying it should be a repetition, but there should be some connection between the PSO and the thrust area of the department. It's very important. Why I'm saying is because the electives that your college, your student faculty will be offering will be in these areas. You will be offering electives in these areas. If a student wants to take image processing, he will start with a course on signal processing, move on to image processing, move on to computer vision, maybe move on to intelligent systems or intelligent vision or robotics. That is a flow of electives, a stream of electives in one area. I hope you understand what I'm trying to tell you. If I want to have machine learning, I'll start with a basic course on data mining, go to machine learning, take an elective in deep learning, and do a project in machine learning or deep learning. There is a flow. So I strongly feel that the PSOs have to be aligned to the departmental thrust areas. That gives a very good mapping also, because ultimately they are the courses and electives that you are going to take. I'm not saying you directly everything. It should be subtly aligned to the thing. Now, From this PSO, the chat is blocking me. Yeah, I can understand that these 3 PSOs are for a civil department which has 3 thrust areas, one being structural systems, one being water supply and sewage, and one being transportation. So I am not a civil engineer, but I can understand from this PSOs that this department of civil engineering, the thrust areas are structural systems, water and sewage, and transportation. Very clear from here. That is how the PSO should be. They should align to your department's trust areas. So we saw PO, graduate attributes, 12 of them. Now we saw PSOs, but both will require the program to have a proper structure and criteria. Now coming to the most important, the course outcomes. We are going to map. Every course will have 5 or 6 course outcomes, and these course outcomes will be mapped onto the POs and the PSO. Please understand, if there are 12 POs for engineering, 2 or 3 PSOs, the PSO is only exactly like a PO. Only thing they call it slightly different. That's all. But otherwise, PSO is considered equivalent to a PO specific to that course. Now, what is a course outcome? The course outcome again is a knowledge, skill, or attribute that you gain from the course. And every course, ideally, it is better from mathematical computation point of view to have 5 to 6. More than that, it becomes highly complicated in terms of calculation, and you can always combine things. Now, I want to very importantly stress one thing. There are 5 units in your syllabus. First unit is CO1. First, second unit is CO2. That is a totally wrong approach. Yes, first unit may be having a discrete different topic that might be there, but that is not what is meant. A course outcome is giving you the attribute or the competence that you get, the knowledge, skill, and attribute that you get from the course. They are not the units of the syllabus, but then there may be a link with the syllabus. Now, this is it's really a stupid course outcome. I'm not reading it. I'll give you a minute to read. Here, this person has done nothing but taken the 5 units and put it as CO1, CO2, CO3, CO4, CO5. First unit is what? Quantum. What is it? Quantum mechanics. Second is crystals. Third is Fermi. Fourth is laser. Fifth is ESR and magnetic resonance. This is not the meaning of a. This is not a good CO at all, right? There is a question whether 3 PSOs. I think ideally 3 PSOs are the best. You can have 5 or 6 COs. Ideally 5 or 6 COs, and ideally 2 or 3 PSOs. Beyond that, it becomes slightly unwieldy in terms of the calculation. But there are people who have come and argued to me and told, no, my course is like that. I have 8 COs. Fine. You have 8 COs. All I'm trying to tell you is that your computation and calculation will be slightly more complicated. That's all I'm trying to say. So you try to finitely put it into 5 or 6 COs and 2 or 3 PSOs and the 12 POs. This is what is it. So this is a stupid example. It's not moving forward. So how do these COs, POs, and this thing map together? All COs should be mapped to POs. Here, POs also include the PSO, but the PO and the PSO will also be aggregated into the vision, mission, and the PEO. So there is it's a very what should I say, complicated structure, but then there is an intrinsic link between all of them. Now we are mapping the CO and PO to COs to PO and PSO. We'll just come to that. Yeah, see this. So I showed you a very bad CO. Now see a very good set of COs. This is an example given by NBA only. how nicely he has elucidated the course outcomes of a course. It probably has nothing to do with the unit 1, the unit 2, or the unit 3, or the unit 4, or the unit 5. It has probably nothing to do with that. They are highly independent and so on. But see how beautifully it is given. One is to apply laws of apply, analyze, design, conduct, prepare. You don't want everything. Why is this not moving? I don't know why this is not moving. Anyway, see here everything is understand, 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 understand. Now you see, and here what he has done: first unit, second unit, third unit, fourth unit, fifth unit. It's just given. But see how nicely this has come. There is no relation with between the CEO to the unit. There may be some connection, but maybe there may be some connection or there may be some alignment, but it's so beautifully given. Applying laws of physics into certain to find the response. Analyzing structural elements for different systems using some design parameters. Designing compression elements using some technology. Conducting experiments to validate. Preparing laboratory. See how nothing to do with the what? Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 4, Unit 5. It is just the competence, the attributes that a student will get after taking this course called Strength of Materials. It's a mechanical. Where is the Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3? And please understand, he has used higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. I'm sure in the morning they told you about Bloom's taxonomy, but I'm not going to repeat that. But you are moving from remembering and understanding to applying concepts, evaluating concepts, analyzing concepts, creating, synthesizing, and building things, architecting things. So you are moving from remembering and understanding into applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating, and so on. And if you see the words, there are so many action verbs that you can use. Compile, identify, create, plan, revise, analyze, utilize, demonstrate, compute, predict. So many action verbs that point out to the higher levels of learning. And now how do we do the mapping, right? So first you have to do what is known as a, just come to that slide. Just give me 1 minute. First you have to do what is known as a course articulation matrix. Course articulation matrix means for a program, a specific program, you have so many courses, right? This is not a course thing. This is the course articulation matrix. You have 12 POs and 2 or 3 PSOs. Then you have 20 or 30 or 40 courses. You list down all the CEOs of all the courses and map them to the POs that you have, 12 POs that you have chosen if it is engineering, and the 2 or 3 PSOs of your program. If it is a computer science program, the 2 or 3 PSOs will be different. If it is a mechanical, it will be different. If it is a BCom program, there may be less number of POs and less number, 1 or 2 specific PSOs. So you list all the subjects that are there in the course program. If BTech computer science has got 40 programs, 40 courses, each course has got 3 or 4 or 5 COs, then you are looking at 40 into 5, 200 or 220 COs. And all these COs you map to the POs. You can employ a judgment call. This is a judgment. please understand this course articulation matrix. In the course articulation matrix, you are writing down all the CEOs of your program. If there are 40 subjects, 5 CEOs per subject, all the 200 CEOs you are mapping to the 12 POs and the 2 or 3 PSOs. This you can give a strong mapping 3, a medium mapping 2, and a weak mapping 1. Now, how do you get this 1, 2, 3? It only comes through judgment and experience. That's all. You have to be doing a trial and error. I'll come to that process, but please understand that this is a trial and error method. This is a method where you are using your judgment and you are mapping every CEO to every PO or this thing, and you will find out some POs will be blank. There will be no mapping, means 0, don't care condition. So this is how you do the mapping. Now you can also have, this is known as a program articulation matrix. Here the course as a whole, not the course is not broken down into COs. As a whole, the course can also be mapped to the POs. But this is not having that much of an importance because this doesn't come in calculations usually. But you can also build a program articulation matrix where all the 40 courses are listed for BTech Computer Science or BTech Electrical and Electronics Engineering or Electronics, and you map it to the program outcomes one by one as a whole. So if you take C programming as a course, does it map to 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, like that? Like that also you can do. But this is a program articulation matrix. Normally it is not too much used for computations, but this course articulation matrix is very much used for calculation, and this 3, 2 and 1 plays a very important weighted factor when you are taking up the final attainments. Now you can also this is not needed for calculation, but your assessment instruments can also be mapped onto the POs. This is not needed for calculation, but this can also be done. If you are having, I'll come to direct and indirect a little later, but if you are having one periodical test, if you are having an end semester exam, you may decide, I am going, instead of an end semester exam, I don't want to conduct an exam, I will have a viva or a project review. Then accordingly the POs will change and so on. So this is also possible. You can do this, but this has no calculation. So this assessment mapping and this program articulation matrix do not help you much for calculations, but they are a good document, like metadata, they are good. But this is very important. Every CEO is mapped to, of all courses is mapped. Now, how do you do the mapping? I told you it is a judgment call. It's a judgment call. It comes through only through experience. Through experience, trial and error, only you come to know this. Now, I can probably take this example. It's a civil engineering example. So basically, what is happening is you have some you have a CEO. This 1 minute. This screen is actually blocking me. I don't know what to do, how to block this. Oh no, I'm not able to do this. Yeah. So you have a CEO. So basically, what is happening is you have written a CEO able to understand mixed proportioning using field application. Now you go into PO1. What is PO1? Knowledge. Whether this CEO is having an intrinsic link to that PO. Whether this CEO is connected to this PO, not only in terms of the content that is there, but also is it connected in terms of the assessment instruments. Now I will give you an example. Suppose you are having a project as an evaluation. Mini project evaluation is 10% of the mark. And that mini project evaluation is done in a group. It is not an individual assignment, meaning it is a group assignment. So when the CEO is coming for whatever mini project on mixed proportioning, and this mini project is involving some sort of group thing, then you need to map it to the CEO PO7, which is involved in individual and teamwork. So the curricular mapping process happens through a trial and error method, through a judgment call. You take the CEO, see whether it is having anything to do with PO1, then you look at PO2. Here, if you see this PO1 and CO3 do not have much, there is no knowledge involved, so we do not do a mapping. Again, do the same process for CO3 and PO2. You ask, okay, whether this is having a mapping, is this measured, whether the assessment is mapping. Sometimes the content does not match, but the assessment instrument for that CEO maps. Like I told you, if it is involving a mini project, obviously it will map to PO7. Like that, you found out that this is again mapping well. Now you decide whether I should give 3, 2 or 1 depending upon. So this is basically a judgment call where you are doing the CEO to PO and PSO mapping. Please understand, when I say PO, it includes the PSO also. So it's a trial and error and a judgment mapping, and that is how we do this curricular mapping. I will repeat. You have a course, you have to build this course articulation matrix where all the CEOs of all the courses are mapped to the POs and the PSOs. You have to do a mapping. You have to decide whether there is a strong mapping, a 3, 2 and 1, whether there is a weightage for that. How do you do it? You do a trial and error. Take each CEO and map and correlate with the PO. When you correlate with the PO, the CEO, you will not only look at the content of the CEO or the knowledge of it, but also the assessment instrument. Does the CEO reflect the intended measurement from PO1? Does the assessment correlate with this PO? So these 2 questions you ask, and based on that you build this course articulation matrix, wherein you are having all the CEOs the same map to the POs. So this is the process of curricular mapping. I will come to the attainment. I will use an Excel sheet to give you a little more hands-on this thing about attainment and so on. Before that, I want to talk to you about about direct and indirect assessment methods. Normally, it is recommended that 80% you take from direct and 20% you take from indirect for the CEO attainment. When I say indirect assessment or indirect assessment is feedback that you may take. The feedback you can take from the students, you can take it from the alumni, you can take from the employers, you can take a course exit survey, and that weightage can be put as 20% of the weight. Give a 20% factor. If you are not very confident about the veracity of the indirect assessment, meaning that it's not very conclusive, you can even give it less weight. You can give it 10% weight also. But NBA recommends 80% and 20%. Now the direct assessment is the direct evaluation methodology, evaluation instruments that you have. It could include your quizzes, Viva, periodical 1, periodical 2, cycle test 1, cycle test 2, cycle test 3, model exam, end semester exam, tutorials, projects, labs, mini projects. All these things will be included in the direct assessment. And this direct assessment is 80%. You take it, and the indirect is 20%. Now, I don't know why this thing is not moving properly. Yeah, and once you get the So you cutting the long story short, assuming I will show you how you are doing the CEO outcome attainment. But once you do the CEO attainment of all the courses, right, for one batch of students, see, one batch of students means 4-year engineering. So this year to 2017 to 2021 batch. The students came into first year in 2017 and they are graduating in 2021. These students have gone for 50-55 subjects, 40 or 55 subjects. Each subject, 55 subject, you may have had 5 CEOs average. So that comes to around 260 or 270 CEOs. What is the attainment for each of these 270 CEOs? Then each of these CEOs are mapped to some POs, and there is a weight also. From that weight only you get what is known as the program attainment. So that is to give you the picture of program attainment. I will repeat again. You have a BTech computer science and engineering. You have 50 courses. Each course has got on an average 5 CEOs. So 50 into 5 is equal to 250. Each of these 250, you see the attainment, and that attainment value, you put it into a matrix. Then you map it to the POs based on the weight. One CEO, one may be mapped to 3 or 4 POs. From there, you get the program attainment. But it is beyond me this scope to explain you that. But I am cutting the long story short. But now I will show you the screen. How to stop this sharing? Oh my God, I don't know how to stop this sharing. Sir, can you stop this sharing? How do you stop this sharing?
Sir, you are having an option now, sir. Right?
I don't use this GoToMeeting at all. I don't know how to stop the sharing.
If we are stopping, then you cannot show other document also. That is a problem. I think sir wanted to switch over to other document now.
Yeah, I have to go to the other document, but I have to. I'm only able to see how to exit the meeting. I'm not able to stop this sharing. I don't know how to stop this sharing.
1 minute, sir. I will ask him to stop sharing. Then I will write again. Yeah, okay.
I don't use this tool a lot, much. 1 or 2 times only I have used this tool. I don't find it very useful.
Sir, yes, sir. Now, sir will close the sharing. Then again, we can show some files.
Okay.
Sir, please, sir. What
I have stopped sharing. Now I got it. I got it. Sorry. I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Please, sir. Please, sir.
Because of non-familiarity with this software.
Sir, no problem. Actually, always we'll use Google only. Actually, for permitting more participants, I registered, sir.
Oh, okay.
A very nice session. Extremely happy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful session, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I will explain how you get the attainment of, how do you calculate an attainment of a course outcome. Now, so this is what I want to tell you. Final course attainment is 80% of direct and 20% of indirect. So indirect is basically some sort of survey, right? A survey you give to the alumni, to the students, to the people, and they give you a value, and that value you can convert it into a percentage. If 90% of them are saying very good, then you can say 90% above the threshold. So that you put that value, and 20% of that is taken for the attainment. 80% is taken from the evaluation instruments. In our case, we have this is our example. There is an internal exams for 50% of the mark, out of which the weight is 15% for periodical 1, 15% for periodical 2, and 20% for continuous assessment, which includes quizzes, tutorials, projects, presentations, and so on. So that is 50%. This internal exam is 50%. End semester exam is another 50%. And you take the attainment of both, and then you get this direct attainment. From that direct attainment, you make it 80%. You take the weight out of it, and 20%. This is how you calculate. Now, before we calculate this thing, you can give a weighting factor in terms of the BTL or the Bloom's taxonomy level. You can define what is known as a target and a threshold. So what does this target and threshold mean is that target means first I will explain threshold. Suppose there is a course or there is a CO. That CO out of 100, assume that there are 100 marks for that CO. Only if somebody gets 50 marks on that CO out of 100, we can say that we have cleared or attained that CO. That is the threshold. So you have put 50 out of 100 for that CO. Now target. What is a target means? You make a decision. At least 50% of the students should have got more than 50 out of 100 for the CO. Only then we can say that the course is got attained. So you have defined a target and you have defined a threshold. Threshold is 50 out of 100. If CO1, there is across all evaluations, you have got say 100 marks are there from CO1. That 100 marks, at least 50 they should have got. And not only that, the target 50% of the students should have got that 50 out of 100. Then only you can say that you have attained that threshold, that CO. And how do you do the calculation for every exam, for every evaluation? Here there is a periodical 1. Periodical 1 has got 10 questions. This is the mark for each question. This is the CO mapped. Each question has to be mapped to the CO. So first question is from CO1. Only 8th and third question is from CO2. Like that you have to do, and what each student has got for every question. That is how you get into the calculation for the CO. Same way you do it for every exam. Periodical 2, 10 questions are there. This is this thing, and what each student has got. Here you are also mentioning the BTL level of the Bloom's taxonomy level. So 2 is understand, 3 is apply, 4 is evaluate. So there is a higher Bloom's taxonomy level. When the Bloom's taxonomy level is higher, the weight also will increase. Same way for all the quizzes, continuous assessment, the quizzes, you do that. And end semester also, end semester you had 20 or 30. For each question you give the marks, you give the CO to which it is mapped, and this thing, and then you do some computation. You will come to that attainment level for this. You will get for PO, for P2, P1 is periodical 1, P2 is periodical 2, CA is continuous assessment, end semester is this, and then you will get from here. This is how the so this is a automated thing, and I'm not able to show, but this is how you do the attainment in that way. So I will again quickly repeat. You are having all your assessment instruments: periodical 1, periodical 2, continuous evaluation, quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3, quiz 4, quiz 5. You have the end semester exam. You have all the questions for all these evaluation. Each question is mapped to CEO. Then you find out the performance of the students for all these questions. From there you get the CEO attainment. This is to cut the long story short. But unfortunately, I don't have time to calculate and show you individually. We can do it in a different session. So this is how you do. So then you got the CEO attainment of all the CEOs. You put it in the program articulation matrix with the weight. You will be able to get the program attainment. This is how the process of CEO, PO, PSO attainment happens. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be able to talk to you on this. I'll be very happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you very much. Thank you to Shaktivel sir for inviting me. Over to the organizers.
Please, sir. Please, sir. It's a great session, sir. All our participants are extremely happy. And sir, I request all our participants, my dear participants, if you have any specific discussions, queries, please unmute and you can speak to our most respected speaker. Great session, sir. Very good information.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, all our participants and all, it's a very good feedback. And they posted some questions also. Yeah.
So there are some questions in the chat box.
Please. Can one of you please read it and tell me? Yeah.
Yeah, 1 minute, sir. Well, sir, whether 3 PSOs will be sufficient for 12 PO being prepared?
Yeah. See, as I mentioned, you can have more PSOs and PSOs, but it will complicate the calculation. From a calculation perspective and a computational perspective, it is better to go for 2 or 3. Otherwise, it becomes highly unwieldy in terms of calculation. See, it is basically an abstraction. And I don't know. Sorry, I'm again coming into a computer science language, but it is an abstraction of the concept. So it is enough that you have 3 PSOs. More than that makes it very, very unwieldy.
Okay, sir. How many COs fixed for each course?
As I mentioned, not more than 6. You can have 4 to 6. Ideally, it is 4 to 6, depending upon what you want, but not more than 6. More than 6 makes it extremely difficult in terms of computation, and even the calculations will go for a toss. It's better to go for 6.
Okay, sir. As PSO is a program specific, how it can be mapped for all courses?
It will not be mapped for all the courses. See, for example, I'll give you one PSO to develop, to train or to create. To create artificial, I'm giving a very simplistic PSO. Train graduates to become adept in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Okay, that is a kind of a PSO. Obviously, you are having a course called say C programming. How will C programming map to artificial intelligence PSO? It will not. So it need not be. Only some courses will map to these kind of PSOs. Before some participants are leaving, I thought I should tell you, all of you, you can always contact me. My email ID, I have put it in the chat box. It is prashant@amrita.edu, prashant@amrita.edu. You can also follow me on Facebook and YouTube. In fact, most of my lectures are there in my YouTube channel also. You just need to search for Prashant R. Nair, PRASHANT space R space Nair. Same name you will find in Facebook and in YouTube. In my channel, many of my lectures on IQAC, OBE are already there. Yeah. Any more questions?
Sir,
No, sir. There is no.
Shubhashri,
Yeah. Yes,
sir, very nice presentation. Very nice presentation. So, for the benefit of all our participants, you could have give some. Throw some light on Ample software which Amrita is using. Just few words regarding that, please, sir.
See, Ample, actually we were using Ample. Now I am told that Ample has been licensed to some company. because you see I don't know what the issues are exactly, but we already had a software called AUMS called Amrita University Management System. Can you hear me? Yeah, we already had a ERP application called Amrita University Management System. Only disadvantage of AUMS was that it was not having OBE. So for that OBE process alone, we used Ample. Now I am told Ample university policy decision is that AUMS will have those features of Ample, and Ample is now has been given to a company to market. So to be very honest, I don't know, but I can always find out. I know the people who are running it. I can put them across. But Ample is basically a software that will calculate all this CEO outcomes automatically. Whenever you are giving a quiz, you are giving it's a very good software that way. You are giving questions automatically. You can define the BTL, Bloom taxonomy. You can define the CEO. So automatically it will calculate and give you. So it's very easy. And in fact, you can even customize the report in such a way that it will be like the NBA format. So that is what Ample will be doing. But now, as I mentioned, Ample is not available freely or with our university. It has been hived to some company. I think the company's name is Omnex or something, Chennai-based company. They are going to be marketing it all over India. And we are now going to use, we are continuing to use AUMS, and this AUMS will have this OBE module. That's what I am told.
Thank you, thank you, sir.
Thank
You
you,
only
sir.
referred to participate Ample workshop and all. I participated and I got that it's a login also, sir.
It was a very good software, but I don't know what happened is that some administrative issues came. So they don't want two competing softwares. So they decided to integrate this Ample into this AUMS and sell this to outside people. That's what they finally decided.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Great, sir. Great, sir. My dear participants, if you have any doubt, wanted to get clarification, please unmute and speak to sir. Great, sir. Our busy schedule, you greatly prepared and demonstrated a concept like anything. It's extremely happy, sir. I hope all our participants are all very comfortable and understood the ideas which you demonstrated. Nitya ma'am?
Sir, I will continue. Sir, Durga Devi.
Durga Devi ma'am. Okay, any one of us. Durga Devi ma'am. Yeah, any one of our faculty.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I request all participants, please turn on your camera just for photo session, please. I request all our faculty members also. We can join with the sir to take a photo, please. Welcome, Director sir. Welcome, welcome.
Afternoon, sir.
Yeah, very good afternoon. Thank you, sir. Already it is recorded. So once you turn on camera, it will be recorded. Later on, I will take a snapshot. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, yes. Sir, I request you to send me this video if possible soon.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, thank you.